to save. But until we do, these people are still a part of that system.
The Matrix is one of the most iconic sci-fi films ever made, but behind all the slow-motion bullets and philosophy, there's some truly bizarre secrets you probably never knew. From green code made out of sushi recipes to behind-the-scenes injuries, unusual casting decisions, and real BDSM clubs used as sets, these 20 hidden facts will completely change the way you see The Matrix. Let's dive in. Fact 1. Will Smith turned down the role of Neo, and he wasn't the only one. Before Keanu Reeves was cast as Neo, the role was offered to none other than Will Smith. At the time, Smith was one of the biggest box office stars in the world, fresh off Independence Day and Men in Black. When the Wachowskis approached him with the role, they pitched the idea of the Matrix world in vague and philosophical terms, and it just didn't click. Smith later admitted that during the meeting, the directors tried to explain bullet time by saying, "Imagine you're in a fight, and you jump, and the camera spins around you while you're frozen in midair." Smith was so confused, he passed. Instead, he took the lead in Wild Wild West, a decision he openly regrets. That movie bombed critically and commercially, while The Matrix became a genre-defining masterpiece. But it wasn't just Will Smith. The studio also considered Nicolas Cage, Brad Pitt, Leonardo DiCaprio, and even Val Kilmer at different points. In fact, the Wachowskis' personal favorite at one time was Johnny Depp, but Warner Bros. Wasn't sold on him and ultimately pushed for a more bankable star. Fact 2. The Matrix code is made from sushi recipes. You know that iconic green digital rain? The endless streams of falling symbols that define the Matrix's entire look? Turns out it's not actually code at all. It's sushi, literally. Simon Whiteley, the production designer who created the code, revealed that he scanned pages from his Japanese wife's sushi cookbook, then digitally manipulated the characters to create the film's signature code. He mirrored, flipped, and stylized the Japanese katakana symbols to make them look cryptic and futuristic. But what you're really seeing on screen are recipes for sushi rolls. So while fans imagine the green code represented complex digital encryption or alien languages, it was actually describing how to make a California roll or tempura. This little secret has become one of the most bizarre and beloved trivia facts among Matrix fans. It's a perfect example of how a simple random inspiration became one of the most recognizable visual effects in movie history. Fact 3. Keanu Reeves couldn't kick during most of his training.
We all know The Matrix is packed with insane martial arts sequences, high kicks, slow motion fights, wall flips, and choreographed duels. But here's the bizarre truth. During the months of training before filming, Keanu Reeves couldn't even kick. Before training began, Reeves was suffering from a serious neck injury. He had been dealing with numbness and pain in his legs, which doctors later discovered was caused by a herniated disc in his spine. He underwent spinal fusion surgery just before starting martial arts training with legendary fight choreographer Yuen Wu-Ping. Because of the recovery process, Reeves was unable to perform high-impact moves, especially anything involving leg flexibility or rotation. For the first 2 months of training, while the rest of the cast was learning kung fu and wire work, Reeves had to stick to basic punching and arm movements. That's why in early fight scenes like Neo's sparring match with Morpheus, you'll notice his movements are mostly upper body based. Those limitations shaped the choreography. Fact 4. The club scene was shot in a BDSM club with real people. One of the first scenes of The Matrix shows Neo following the White Rabbit into a dark, underground nightclub where he meets Trinity for the first time. It's gritty, intense, and full of people dressed in leather, chains, and latex. But here's the wild part. That wasn't a movie set. The scene was actually filmed at the Hellfire Club, a real BDSM nightclub in Sydney, Australia. And those weren't extras or hired actors. You're seeing actual patrons of the club. The production invited regulars to be part of the scene and told them to just wear what they'd normally wear and do what they'd normally do. No costume department, no rehearsals, just real underground nightlife caught on camera. Fact 5. The Wachowskis had to make a different movie first just to prove they could direct. Before The Matrix became a blockbuster, Warner Bros. Didn't fully trust the Wachowskis. At the time, the sibling duo had only written one produced screenplay, Assassins in 1995, and they had never directed a film before. Asking for a $60 million budget for a wild, genre-blending sci-fi movie with philosophical themes and experimental visuals, the studio thought they were out of their minds. So Warner Bros. Gave them a test. If they wanted to direct The Matrix, they first had to prove they could handle a real film set. The Wachowskis agreed, and in response, they wrote and directed a completely different movie called Bound, 1996. It was a low-budget crime thriller with a tight cast and an intense, stylish tone. The film starred Gina Gershon and Jennifer Tilly and received critical acclaim for its sharp visuals, clever writing, and mature storytelling. Most importantly, it proved that the Wachowskis had the vision and technical skill to lead a movie from start to finish.
Bound was made for just $6 million, but it blew away studio execs. It was that success that finally convinced Warner Brothers to greenlight The Matrix with the Wachowskis in the director's chairs. So without Bound, there would be no Matrix. Fact 6, they created a 600-page shot-for-shot storyboard just to convince the studio. Getting The Matrix greenlit wasn't easy. Warner Brothers liked the idea, but didn't fully understand what the Wachowskis were trying to create. The script was dense, packed with philosophical concepts, virtual worlds, and reality-bending action. The studio's reaction? Confusion. They didn't get it at all, so instead of trying to explain it again, the Wachowskis decided to show it visually. They hired legendary comic book artist Jeff Darrow and storyboard artist Steve Skroce, known for his work with Marvel Comics, to help him create a massive, detailed storyboard for the entire movie, scene by scene, shot by shot. The final pitch was over 600 pages long, filled with illustrated panels that looked like a living graphic novel version of The Matrix. This wasn't a normal pitch, it was a full visual breakdown of the entire film's look, tone, and style. It included early versions of bullet time, the rooftop chase, and the subway fight. Once Warner Brothers saw those visuals, everything clicked. They realized the Wachowskis weren't just pitching a weird sci-fi concept, they were planning a full-on cinematic revolution. That 600-page storyboard convinced the studio to finally invest millions into what became one of the most groundbreaking sci-fi films of all time. Fact 7, reflections and mirrors are hidden everywhere, even in the music. If you look closely, The Matrix is obsessed with reflections and mirrors, and it's not just visual, it's thematic. You'll notice it early on when Neo is interrogated by Agent Smith. In that scene, you can actually see the camera reflected in Smith's sunglasses, but the filmmakers cleverly masked it using CGI, replacing the camera with a digital doorknob. Later, when Neo touches the broken mirror in Morpheus's apartment, the liquid metal begins crawling up his arm, foreshadowing how deeply the illusion of a Matrix runs. Even the iconic red and blue pill moment is framed with a reflection. Neo's choice is shown in the mirrored lenses of Morpheus's glasses, each pill visible in opposite lenses. It's symbolic, a literal reflection of the decision that will change his life. But the mirror theme goes deeper than visuals. Composer Don Davis mirrored the idea musically as well. Fact 8, background extras were duplicated to hint at glitches in The Matrix. One of the creepiest and most subtle details in The Matrix is how often the filmmakers use twins and triplets in the background. It's easy to miss, but once you spot it, you can't unsee it, and it's no accident.
In multiple scenes, especially in crowd shots or city streets, you'll notice people who look identical, wearing the same clothes, moving the same way, or even sitting in mirrored positions. These aren't camera tricks or reused footage. The production intentionally cast real-life twins and triplets as extras to represent background code repeating itself. This technique was used to visually represent glitches in The Matrix, echoes in the simulation that the average person wouldn't notice, but the audience subconsciously registers as off. It's a visual way of showing that something isn't quite right with the world Neo is trapped in. Fact 9, the hidden meaning behind Room 101 and Room 303. In The Matrix, even the room numbers are dripping with meaning, and once you understand them, you'll never look at these scenes the same way. Neo starts the film in Room 101. That might sound ordinary until you realize it's a direct reference to George Orwell's dystopian novel, 1984. In Orwell's world, Room 101 is where prisoners are taken to confront their greatest, most personal fear, a mental breaking point used to force obedience. For Neo, this is incredibly fitting. At this stage in the film, he's confused, restless, and afraid of what's real and what isn't. He's living in fear, stuck in the Matrix, and hasn't yet broken free. It's not just a room number, it's a metaphor for his psychological prison.
I hit the ground, you went on your...
Now, contrast that with Room 303, where Trinity is introduced and where the film ends. She's first seen in this room during the police raid, and it's also where Neo is shot, dies, and is resurrected. The number 303 isn't just another hotel door, it's a loaded symbol of transformation and rebirth. The 3 repeated twice evokes the Holy Trinity, aligning with Trinity's name and her role in Neo's awakening. Her kiss literally brings Neo back to life in that same room, completing his arc from human to the One. Fact 10, Carrie-Ann Moss hid a serious injury to avoid being kicked off the cast.
You move like they do. I've never seen anyone move that fast.
Carrie-Ann Moss delivered an unforgettable performance as Trinity, cool, confident, and absolutely fierce in every single scene. But what most people don't know is that behind all those iconic stunts, she was pushing through a painful secret. While filming one of her early action scenes, Moss badly injured her ankle during a wire stunt. The injury was serious enough that she could barely walk properly, but instead of telling anyone on set, she kept it completely hidden, even from the directors. Why? Because she was terrified that if the studio found out, they might replace her. Moss was a relatively unknown actress at the time. She had never done a major action film, and The Matrix was her big break. She later admitted in interviews that she didn't want to be seen as weak or replaceable, so she gritted her teeth, kept quiet, and powered through the rest of filming in constant pain. Fact 11, The Matrix cast had to study philosophy before filming.
To truly grasp the depth of The Matrix, the cast wasn't just handed a script. They were given a syllabus. Before filming began, the Wachowskis reportedly required the actors to read several dense and mind-bending philosophical texts. The reading list included Jean Baudrillard's Simulacra and Simulation, Kevin Kelly's Out of Control, and other works exploring postmodernism, systems theory, and simulated reality. These weren't suggestions, they were mandatory. The goal? To ensure that the cast didn't just perform the dialogue, but fully understood the philosophical weight behind it. In the world of The Matrix, where free will is an illusion and reality is a lie, the Wachowskis wanted their actors to be as mentally unplugged as their characters. Fact 12. The lobby shootout was real.
Carry, keys, loose change.
One of the most iconic scenes in The Matrix, the lobby shootout, wasn't built in a computer. It was real, loud, and explosive. The entire sequence was achieved with practical effects, not CGI. The crumbling columns, made of real foam-filled concrete and blown apart with live pyrotechnics. The shattered tiles and debris, hand-planted squibs, and tiny explosive devices rigged throughout the set. Every gunshot spark, bullet hole, and flip from Neo and Trinity was meticulously choreographed by the stunt team, who rehearsed each move down to the millisecond. The Wachowskis were so committed to realism that the lobby set had to be rebuilt and blown up multiple times just to capture every slow-motion angle perfectly. Fact 13. Keanu traded millions for the crew's magic. Keanu Reeves could have walked away from the Matrix sequels with a staggering fortune of reportedly over $75 million, but instead of cashing in, he made a selfless and nearly unheard of move. He gave tens of millions from his own salary to the visual effects and costume departments. Why? Keanu believed these behind-the-scenes artists were the true architects of the Matrix universe. From bullet time sequences to leather-clad character designs, their work shaped the entire aesthetic and feel of the trilogy. He saw them not as background contributors, but as co-creators of the film's legacy. And what makes this even more powerful is that he didn't make a big deal about it. Fact 14. Unplug wasn't just a joke, it foreshadowed Neo's destiny.
Look, it just sounds to me like, you need to unplug, man. Get some.
In one of the earliest scenes of The Matrix, Neo is visited by his coworker Choi, who casually tells him he needs to unplug. At first glance, it sounds like typical party chatter, just a guy telling his stressed out friend to take a break from work. But this line is actually loaded with foreshadowing. The word unplug ends up becoming central to the entire film. Within the Matrix universe, being unplugged means escaping the illusion, detaching from the simulation and waking up to reality. So Choi unknowingly delivers a prophetic nudge toward Neo's future.
But that's not the only moment heavy with symbolism. When Neo signs for a mysterious package at his door, he uses a pen with both red and blue ink options. This directly mirrors the red and blue pill choice he'll soon be faced with. And which side does Neo click on to activate the pen? The blue one. That tiny action subtly reveals his mindset at the time. Still hesitant, still plugged into the comfort of illusion. Fact 15. One scene that bought creative freedom. The first 5 minutes of The Matrix, Trinity's unforgettable rooftop chase, did more than introduce a character. It saved the entire production. At the time, Warner Brothers wasn't fully sold on the project. The script was dense and philosophical, the concept was risky, and the Wachowskis were unproven directors with only one indie film to their name. So instead of greenlighting the full budget, the studio gave them just $10 million to shoot a proof of concept scene. The Wachowskis bet everything
everything on the opening: wire foo stunts, slow motion shots, and Trinity's iconic mid-air freeze kick. It was slick, mysterious, and completely unlike anything Hollywood had seen. When the studio saw the final footage, everything changed. They approved the remaining budget, and more importantly, they stepped back. That one scene proved the Wachowskis had a vision worth trusting, earning them full creative freedom to make the film exactly how they imagined it. Fact 16. 120 camera were used to shoot bullet time. The iconic bullet time moment where Neo dodges bullets in slow motion wasn't CGI magic. It was created using a custom rig of about 120 still cameras and 2 film cameras, all arranged in a calculated arc around Keanu Reeves. These cameras fired in a rapid sequence, capturing individual frames from multiple angles to create that jaw-dropping, spinning slow motion effect. This innovation didn't just look cool, it redefined how action scenes could be filmed. Bullet time became a signature visual language of the Matrix, representing the way reality bends inside the simulation. It's been endlessly imitated, but nothing has ever matched the original's impact. Fact 17. Lawrence Fishburne was the only one who understood the script.
Let me tell you why you're here. You're here because you know.
When the Matrix script first made the rounds in Hollywood, most people, even the actors, had no idea what it was really about. Keanu Reeves admitted he didn't fully understand it at first. Karie-Ann said she just trusted the directors, and Hugo Weaving later said he had to read it multiple times before the concept really clicked. But there was one cast member who understood it immediately: Lawrence Fishburne. Fishburne, who played Morpheus, read the script once and was totally in. He got the metaphors, he understood the allegories, and he embraced the entire concept without hesitation. He said in an interview that it was the smartest script he had ever seen, and he knew from day one that the movie was going to be special.
Fact 18. Humans weren't CPUs, they were just batteries.
One of the most persistent myths about The Matrix is that the original script had humans acting as organic CPUs, their brains used to process data for the machines rather than being harvested for energy. While this idea does float around on forums and fan theories, it's simply not true. The Wachowskis always intended for humans to be used as bioelectric batteries, as explained by Morpheus in the film. Sure, it's scientifically questionable humans aren't efficient power sources, but it's not about realism, it's a metaphor for control, exploitation, and dehumanization. The machines don't need us for data, they strip us of agency, reduce us to fuel, and plug us into an illusion we can't escape. So while the CPU brain farm theory sounds cooler on paper, the actual battery concept is more haunting and more aligned with the film's themes. Fact 19. The movie was filmed in Sydney. Although The Matrix is meant to feel like any city at any time, it was actually filmed entirely in Sydney, Australia. The production team cleverly avoided showing any iconic Sydney landmarks to preserve the illusion of a vague, universal cityscape. To stretch the budget, they even repurposed sets from the sci-fi thriller Dark City, using its alleys, rooftops, and interiors to craft the Matrix's eerie, anonymous world. The result was a city that felt both familiar and unsettling, just like the simulation itself. Fact 20. Baudrillard criticized the film. Jean Baudrillard's Simulacra and Simulation wasn't just inspiration, it was required reading for the cast and crew of The Matrix. The book dives deep into the idea that reality has been replaced by a system of symbols and simulations. But ironically, Baudrillard himself wasn't a fan of the film. In multiple interviews, he dismissed it as missing the point, saying The Matrix is neither subtle nor philosophical, it's just another simulation. He felt the movie turned complex, abstract ideas into something too literal, stripping away the ambiguity his work was meant to provoke. So while the Wachowskis helped introduce his ideas to millions, Baudrillard believed they got it wrong and didn't appreciate being turned into a pop culture icon.
Have you ever had a dream, Neo, that you were so sure was real?
And just like Neo waking up from the illusion, now you see these behind-the-scenes truths, you can't unsee them. The Matrix wasn't just a sci-fi movie, it was a wake-up call, a masterpiece built on philosophy, grit, and pure creativity. If you enjoyed diving deeper into the code behind The Matrix, hit that like button to help more fans discover this video. Subscribe for more hidden truths and forgotten details from your favorite films, and drop a comment. What's one Matrix moment that still blows your mind, even after all these years? Until next time, stay awake, stay curious.